Have you ever watched a good idea die slowly without anybody actually saying no? It usually sounds polite. We need to check. Let's take it offline. Could you add a bit more detail? And if you're the person who cares, you do what you always do. You go back, you improve it, you make it better, you make it feel safer, and then you bring it back. And still, it doesn't move. Now, if that's been happening to you, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not actually behind. You're just running into how decisions get made in most modern workplaces. Now, I've seen this change in decisions in minutes when weeks of presentations did nothing. Because you see, there are two systems at play in the modern workplace. There is the traditional org chart, the organizational chart that people show you. It gives you the structure. It's that picture on the wall. And then there's the decision path that people use. Today, I'm going to show you how to read that decision path in 10 minutes. You're going to learn about 4 roles that actually matter more than job titles. And you're going to be able to spot that quiet blocker fast. I'm going to also give you one question that's going to turn vague delay into something real without you having to become someone you don't want to be. So here's the tricky bit, particularly in knowledge-heavy work. Everyone sounds reasonable. And you walk out of a meeting and nothing happens. Because most delays, most stalling comes dressed up as process. I think we need to take it offline. Let's involve more people or broaden the stakeholders. How about we sanity check that? Let's circle back next week on this. Could you add more detail? And if you're a high-functioning high performer, this is just going to hit your reflex. You're going to do more. More presentations, more slides, more analysis, more proof, more polish. And that response makes sense because it feels responsible. Because it is responsible. It's also, though, what keeps you stuck when the issue actually sits somewhere else. You see, a lot of stalling, a lot of delays actually come down to the decision route itself. The who gets a say, who needs to feel safe, who worries about risk, who doesn't want a surprise landing on their lap. And this often hits women leaders, particularly the ones that I've worked with, a lot harder than male compatriots because there's a very specific reason. Women often get measured based on competence and likability at the same time. So when you push for clarity, you feel the risk. It's too intense, too direct, too much. And then you either over-prepare to try to earn that safety, or you go quiet trying to avoid the heat. And if you've done that, let me add, there's no shame in that. It's a completely rational response to an irrational setup. And here's what's usually happening underneath. A lot of decisions, they're going to get shaped before that meeting even happens. The meeting is just the public version of the decision. Because in that room, people want to protect their image. They want to protect their workload, protect themselves from being the one holding all the risk. And that's often where the delay starts because it comes across as professional. And it can often look professional, even when it's just fear using better grammar. So your goal is simple. Stop getting surprised. Here's a quick test for you. Think about the last meeting, the last decision that got delayed, got stalled. And I want you to ask yourself these questions. Who got the heads up before the invite went out? Who got the quiet, quick chat? Who was asked, any concerns? Who can slow down the process without ever needing to say no? And if you can't name those people yet, you are relying on that tidy picture. The one that you've been taught is the room. And that's often why it's catching you out. let me give you the 4 roles that you need to look out for. Because once you can name them, you're going to stop guessing. And you're also going to stop burning your evenings rewriting slides for a problem that was never about the information or the slides. Okay. Give me a minute and forget about titles. In most organizations, in almost all organizations, the same 4 roles show up again and again and again. Let's see if you can recognize them as I say them. Role number 1 is the sponsor. Now these are the people that create permission. They make it feel safe for other people to back your work, to back your idea. Now they're not often, and not always, your manager. Sometimes they sort of sit 2 levels away from you. And sometimes they're, almost always, they're the person that everyone trusts. So you're going to hear them say something like, I want this to happen. Or this needs to happen. Or this should happen. Role 2 is the owner. These are the people that hold the pen. They're the ones who decide, or control rather, what goes upwards in terms of the recommendation. This is the person who's going to write the email that actually becomes the decision. If you can't name the owner yet, then what's going to happen is your work lands up just floating about. Role 3 is the connector. This is the person who can move trust across teams. They're the ones who translate the value into language that other people will just go, sure. They look mid-level on paper, but in real life, this is the person everyone listens to. Consider them the center of the web, because they're the person who can get 3 teams to stop defending something and actually start solving a problem together. Role 4 is the quiet veto. Now this one is the reason that so many capable leaders feel like they're going mad. Because the quiet veto sounds responsible. They very rarely, if ever, say no in public, but they stall with things like risk or widening scope. They quite simply just delay things. Worst is, they just go quiet and time disappears. And it could just be 1 sentence. Interesting. Just want to make sure that we're covered. In that sentence, everything slows down. Now this is where it becomes a bit of a mirror. Because if you've been treating that meeting as the first conversation, let me just say you're not naive. You're just doing what you were trained to do, which was prepare good work, present it well, defend it, and let the structure, whether that's a hierarchy or not, decide. Now in a lot of workplaces, in particular the modern workplace, it's just incomplete as a picture. Because that meeting is often, as I mentioned, the public moment, not the shaping moment. So if you're thinking, this feels like politics, fair, absolutely fair. And people hate that word. So use a different one. Call it reality, decision cleanliness, avoiding surprises. The point stays the same here. Remove the surprises and people will stop panicking in public. Because in that meeting room, it's public. They're going to panic if they feel it's coming to them. So a simple rule you can use today. If a decision touches multiple teams, the connector matters as much as the owner. If the decision touches budget, reputation, compliance, risk, the quiet veto matters even if they do not outrank you. Let me show you how to spot that person, that quiet veto, spot them fast. I'm going to give you a question that's also going to force clarity without you having to become the person who pushes. So, the quiet veto tends to show up in 5 different ways, or 5 different moves, 5 different ways of saying something. Number 1. One more check. Number 2. We need to align with X. Could be a project, could be a person, could be a company policy. 3. I think we should involve a few more eyes on this. Let's broaden the stakeholders. 4. I'm worried about risk on this. 5. Silence. No reply. No follow-up. Just a slow fade into nowhere. But notice what each of those 5 things do. They all do one thing in common. They stretch time. They turn your work into an endless loop, an endless cycle. And if you're conscientious, and I can bet, if you're watching this, you're a conscientious individual, you're going to start filling that gap with effort. Because that's what high performers, high functioners do. But here's a question that's going to change that for you. Ask, what would need to be true for this to be a yes? Say it like that. Keep the tone neutral. What would need to be true for this to be a yes? Like you're genuinely curious. Because you are. That question is going to do 3 things for you. It's going to force specifics, surface the real concern, and stop vague delay from hiding behind so-called professional language. If you're concerned, add a follow-up to that, just to lock it in. Okay, so if we address that, are you comfortable moving forward? Or who needs to be comfortable before we can get this to move forward? Again, neutral tones. You're not trying to start an argument. You're just looking at that room and you're mapping it. Now, one timing point on this question, and it's quite critical, ask it early. Ask it as early as you possibly can, right? This could be in a one-to-one, it could be a quick pre-brief, because basically, once everyone's in that room, they're all watching. They're watching each other, they're watching themselves, because people want to protect their image. Let me be upfront, nobody wants to be the person who changes their mind in public. Especially if that means the risk is going to land on them. Now I've seen this play out in one of my roles, and it was surprising because I remember presenting quite a big change to how we sold a product. It was a complete structural change. And in the first meeting, I presented it to the big hitters, and the questions came in. They're all fair ones. Of course, I went back and I did the work. The second meeting, it all looked like we were heading towards yes, we're all on the same page. And then a new person, a new stakeholder joined late. And in 2 minutes, they'd flipped the whole room. They'd gone from a yes to a no. And I felt it in my body. I felt, that heat. What the hell just happened? And I thought I'd misread the room. And later, after thinking about it for quite a while, it all became obvious to me. That decision had been shaped elsewhere, without me being present. So yes, I was presenting to the public room, but the real room had already met. In that moment, I stopped trying to perfect the work, and the ideas, and anything. But I started mapping who needed to feel safe before the meeting, who needed to have everything before the meeting. Let me give you the 1 page. 10 minutes, 1 page exercise. It's going to give you 1 decision. It's going to tell you who to speak to before the meeting, so that meeting stops being that first conversation. So this is called a 10-minute power map, and I implore you to try this in the next 7 days. Pick a live decision, 1 live decision that actually matters, and keep it clean. So this is about it being a decision, not a project. An example could be approving a pilot budget, picking a vendor, agreeing a launch date, changing a process, hiring a role. Just pick a decision rather than a project. And step 1 is to write down the decision at the top of the page. Then, step 2, I want you to draw 4 boxes, a bit like a SWOT diagram. Sponsor, owner, connector, quiet veto. Step 3, write the names down in pencil. A pencil matters. Understand that this is a working map. It's allowed to be wrong at first. And if you feel a bit weird about doing it, it's normal, because You're naming what already exists instead of trying to pretend it doesn't, and that often goes against the internal compass. So quick pause here, draw 4 boxes. And write one name you feel maybe unsure about. Because that uncertainty is often going to point to a gap that keeps surprising you. So let's just say this is a real example with placeholder names, right? Let's say you had to approve a decision in, a 2-week pilot for maybe a new process. Sponsor, mayor, senior leader who wants faster delivery, owner, Dan, the person who sends the recommendation upwards, connector, Priya, who translates it for sales and ops, quiet veto, Jordan, works in risk, never says no, but can definitely slow anything down. That's your map. There's no drama, no judgment. That map's going to give you that clarity. Step 4, very important. Under those boxes, I need you to write, where will this be shaped before the meeting? And then list the places that you already know. Could be anything. It's got to be relevant to your situation. Could be a quick one-to-one. Could be the water cooler chat, the corridor chat. If those still happen. The message starts with, have you seen this yet? The pre-brief, the 5 minutes before. Step 5, try to book 2 short touch points before that main meeting. If you can, make them 10 minutes each. And touch point 1 is going to be with that connector. Okay? Talk to them and ask, what language would make this easy for the teams to support? Now in this, you're being smart, not pushy, because what you're doing, you're borrowing translation. You're making it easier for them to say yes. Now you might see yourself as the connector, and that's fine. Try find another connector so you can bounce that idea off them. Touch point 2 is going to be with the owner or the quiet veto. You're going to have to decide who's more important in this decision process. And this is all about asking, what would you need to see to feel confident backing this? Or what would need to be true for this to be yes? Step 6, walk into the meeting, but do it with 3 things. The decision in 1 sentence, the potential trade-offs, or maybe the real trade-offs, based on that decision that needs to happen. And the 3rd thing is the next step with an owner and a date. Now this is where I see quite often women leaders get quietly overused in a situation. Because if you walk in without that clarity, the room is going to start to drift, it's going to start to meander, and you're left to tidy it up. Right? Because you're going to land up in carrying that loop, that circuit, because you're capable, and it's what people have gotten used to. Now this approach is going to reduce that, because you're going to walk in with the decision clear, with a path clear. Now let me give you a 30-second reset that you can use when the meeting starts to meander, starts to drift. So when it starts meandering, don't become louder, become clearer. Say, okay, so what decision are we making right now? Pause. Let it sit. If nobody names a decision, if there is no decision, name it. Okay, so it's an update, not a decision. Then ask, who owns that next step and by when? Remember, no owner and no date equals drift equals meandering. Drift becomes stress. Stress lands on the most responsible person in the room. And I'm going to guess that's you. Now, if you want to keep it calm, you can always add, I want to make it easier for everyone to have clarity when they leave, or I want to make it easy for everyone to leave clear. Whichever version of that. Now, in everything there are boundaries that are going to matter, and often you've been the cleanup crew by default. So if the room tries to hand you that next step, use this one. Yeah, sure, I can help, but I can't own it right now. So who owns it and what's the date? Say it like you mean it. No apology. No edge either. Just clean. Don't lead with an apology. And don't be aggressive. So this is another lens and mirror moment. If you've been carrying that circuit, that loop, and it's because It's because you're capable, not because you're weak. It's because people trust you, because you do get the job done. But they also get used to you saying yes in the meeting and saving it. That reset is going to train the room to carry its own work. So that you do less chasing, less proving, less quiet resentment. And you can have more clarity, more follow through. So if your work keeps stalling, it makes complete sense that you're frustrated. Because you are doing your part. But you are dealing with a system that's often deciding things before that agenda was even sent. So try it in the next 7 days. Pick a decision, do the 10-minute map, and have the two short pre-brief chats. Use that 30-second reset if the room starts to meander. Once you've tried it, I'd love you to come back to the comments and tell me the one who surprised you the most. Was it the sponsor, the owner, the connector, the quiet veto? And if this was of value to you, please subscribe, get the notifications. I'm going to be building on these concepts over the course of the next year. Just remember, you don't have to carry the whole circuit. You don't have to carry the whole loop. And you certainly don't have to lose your self-respect in that process. This is your time to rise.